Hi, everybody. This is Jimmy DeYoung. Welcome to Prophecy Today video. You know, each week on Prophecy Today weekend, we have conversations with our broadcast partners to discuss the headlines of the major news stories, and then we're able to find out more details behind these stories as we discuss these current events with men who have the knowledge of what really we need to know. This week is no exception. And by the way, if you missed any of my conversations, you can go to our website, prophecytoday.com. PTRN, Prophecy Today Radio Network, will allow you to re-listen to any of these conversations. Maybe you need to go once again and visit what they had to say. Or you can call a friend and you can tell them how they can hear these stories. For example, we talked with Colonel Bob McGinnis in Washington, D.C., his article on our website, Arab Spring, Becoming Islamist States in the Arab Winter, and he was in particular talking about Libya. He was talking about Egypt and what's going on in these particular countries, and Tunisia as well. But I talked with Colonel Bob McGinnis about Iran being ready for war with Israel. We talked with Ken Timmerman. He had our Middle East news update this week. We talked about the Israelis discussing the possibility of a preemptive strike. Now, the Prime Minister and the Defense Minister of Israel have been talking privately about it. Somebody has leaked the possibility this would happen. Prime Minister has gone public. Everybody making the statement, if he's talking about it publicly, it's not going to happen at this time. But indeed, there will be a preemptive strike against Iran if somebody else does not step up to shut down this development of a nuclear weapon of mass destruction. Ken brought insight into our thinking as we discussed it. Itamar Marcus, he covers the Palestinian media. He's the director of Palestinian Media Watch. And he was talking with us about the new membership in UNESCO. That's the United Nations Education, Science, and Cultural Organization. And the Palestinians are now a part of that, a part of a plan, altogether overall plan to try to bring the Palestinians into international acclaim. We talked with David Wilder. He is the spokesperson for the Jewish community in Hebron, the oldest Jewish community in the history of the world. This is one of the heritage sites for the Jewish people. And indeed, in our conversation, we're able to help us understand why Hebron, dating back 4,000 years ago to the times of Abraham, is so key, and they have no connection to the Palestinian people at all. Dr. Rob Congdon brought to our attention the Eurozone crisis, Greece, and how they're going back and forth on the deal that has been made by the European Union, how this is all going to play out, really setting the stage for Bible prophecy to be fulfilled. And Elwood McQuaid wrote an article in the Jerusalem Post, Where Have All the Christians Gone? It's a focus on Christians being martyred all across the world, in particular in the Middle East. It's a must-read. It's on our website, prophecytoday.com. Remember, if you missed any of these conversations, go to our website, prophecytoday.com, PTRN, Prophecy Today Radio Network, radio when you want it, at your convenience, when you have time to listen. One of the stories this week that was woven throughout all of the reports from our broadcast partners is the threat that Iran is not only to Israel, but also to the entire Middle East, Europe, and even the United States. From a strictly geopolitical perspective, Iran is more and more a serious problem for most all of the major nations of the world. The recent anniversary, remember, on November the 4th, it was the 32nd anniversary of the hostages being taken control of by the Iranian young people. That was back in 1979. It was the U.S. Embassy in Tehran, Iran, 32 years ago, and that resulted in 444 days of hostages held in the U.S. Embassy there in Tehran. I would say this was the beginning of the end for the nation that would become a radical Islamic republic, and the main source for the monies, the manpower, and the munitions for global terrorism. Well, I say the beginning of the end because as the Islamic Republic in Iran came to power, every move they made since that time has brought the Middle East, I believe, a lot closer to the prophetic scenario that's found in Bible prophecy. After all the radical rhetoric of the Iranian president Ahmadinejad, out comes a recent declaration from Iran that they're ready to go to war with Israel. I do believe the stage is set for Bible prophecy to be fulfilled. Book of Daniel, chapter 11, Ezekiel 38, and Psalm 83 give us a list of aligned nations that will form a coalition to come and try to destroy the Jewish state of Israel. The very first three states to make a move, now listen to this, in Daniel chapter 11, verses 40 to 43, Syria, Egypt, and Libya are listed. The first three nations to make a move. Then you go over to Ezekiel chapter 38. That's the rest of the list over there, but chapter 38, verse 5, mentions, very beginning of that verse, Persia. Now, Persia, until 1936, would be three countries we know today as Iran, Afghanistan, and Pakistan. Do you see what's coming into focus here? Listen, Ahmadinejad made a statement back in July of 2008. He said that Israel must be wiped off the face of the earth and her name be forgotten forever. Read Psalm 83, verse 4. That's almost a direct quote from the Bible made by the president of the radical leadership of Iran. Iran is making ready to do what the Bible said would happen. They're developing a nuclear weapon of mass destruction. And I want you to know every single other nation listed in the list in Ezekiel 38, Psalm 83, and Daniel chapter 11 are ready to go against Israel. Israel is preparing to do a preemptive strike. Will they do it, and will they be successful? We don't know for sure they're going to do it. I tell you what, I believe what's going to happen is what the Bible calls for. Jesus Christ will intercede. Ezekiel 38, verses 18 through chapter 39, verse 6 give us how this is all going to unfold. The Lord's going to come against these nations of Israel, and they're going to go in there, and he's going to wipe out these nations who are trying to destroy the Jewish state. Let me remind you of something. Before this prophetic scenario is fulfilled, the rapture must take place, and that could happen at any moment. We see all of this unfolding in geopolitical activities, helping us to understand where we are in Bible prophecy. But I don't want you to forget, I do not want you to forget the rapture of the church could happen at any moment. And after saying everything we said on this broadcast today, there's nothing left for me to say except let's keep looking up until